This is Support is Sexy, episode 119. What would it look like if this were easy? Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, producer, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I talk to women entrepreneurs who share their journeys and the true stories of their wins and their lessons, and give you insight and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. This is Elayne. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of Support is Sexy. I got to tell you, it just would not be the same without you. And today I have a question for you. What would it look like if this were easy? That is a question that I have started to ask myself ever since I heard author and podcaster Tim Ferriss, whose show I absolutely love. And of course, he wrote the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, which has been such a big hit and so instrumental in the lives of so many entrepreneurs. But Tim Ferriss said during a podcast interview that I heard him on, when he was thinking about launching his own podcast, he didn't go for full-on production, over the top, thousands of people working on it and that kind of thing. He said that he asked himself, what would this look like if it were easy? And that really resonated with me because I'm sure you go through this too. As an entrepreneur, it's so easy for us to get caught up in the hustle, or you know what? Hustle is actually good. I won't even say that anything is wrong with hustle, but do you feel harried? That is the thing. Do you feel like you're all over the place, scattered, too many things going on at once, can't get control of things, out of focus? I went through that recently in the past week when I was preparing for a trip to Washington, D.C., taking my mom to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Very excited about it, but it is a trip in the middle of the week nonetheless. So there's a little bit of cramming things into just a couple of days to try to get it all done, or to force myself to get it all done before we leave town. But then I had to stop myself and go back to that question. As soon as I realized I was getting a little harried, I had to check in and say, what would this look like if it were easy? And I'll tell you, doing that really can help you shift everything that you're thinking about, or at least shift how you're thinking about it. Really begin to scale back, look at everything, take a minute, and readjust. So I'm going to talk to you today very briefly about what asking that question can do for you, or the ways that I believe it can benefit you, or at least I'll say the ways in my experience asking myself that question has benefited me. Because in the middle of the whirlwind, honestly, some goals can start to become a little bit unrealistic. Things that you're trying to accomplish in 24, when you're trying to accomplish 76 things in 24 hours, you're out of control. You need to stop and ask yourself this question, and then answer the question, move forward accordingly. So some of the things that the question has been helpful for me in doing, and I hope it will be helpful for you moving forward, is avoiding mistakes. Because when you're in a hurry, you tend to make more mistakes. When you're in a hurry and sleepy, at least for me, you tend to make more mistakes. And a great quote that I love is from my friend Joanne. Well, actually, it's from her mom. She told me, I'm paraphrasing, it was something like, I was in a hurry, so I took my time. Because I think I may have mentioned this on the podcast before as one of my favorite quotes now that I'm saying it. But when you're in a hurry and you rush, you'll notice you make a lot more mistakes, and then you usually end up having to do whatever it is over again, or go back and correct things, or you forget something, or it doesn't turn out right in the end, or ultimately you end up wasting time. So when you're in a hurry, you need to take your time, focus, do things the right way the first time. And usually you can do so when you slow it down a little bit and pay attention. You can still move with urgency, but you can slow it down, pay attention, avoid mistakes. You're in a hurry. You want to make sure to take your time, and asking yourself, what would this look like if it was easy? Gives you more space to take your time. Another thing asking that question does, at least for me, and I hope it does for you, decreases stress. Because again, if you're trying to squeeze 76 things into 24 hours, it is likely not going to work. It's not going to do anything but frustrate you because you probably are not going to get even half of those things accomplished. It's better to focus on one or two big to-dos and what makes sense. So for me, for example, stopping myself and saying, okay, instead of trying to edit 5 new interviews, do the solo episodes, talk about what you went through this week and your journey, what you learned, include an interview within the week, and move the other ones to next week because you don't want to rush through them, don't want to stress out, trying to edit things, end up making mistakes, and regret putting these things up when they aren't their best quality simply because you were trying to do 76 things in 24 hours. And immediately that decreased the stress for me because I was able to shift and think about things differently. Thought about what would it look like if it was easy. And I'll say this, it doesn't mean asking that question will make whatever it is easy, but it allows you to think about it in a different way. Instead of going into whatever it is saying, this is going to be hard, this is going to be difficult, all of it. So much of entrepreneurship, so much of life in general is all about the mind, right? Mind over matter, using your mind to think about things a different way and to really shift your circumstance. It is quite possible. So in thinking about it, what if it was easy? It can help you shift whatever it is or look at it a different way and move in a different direction. Another thing to remember when you ask yourself that question, always remember that you can do it differently later if it's not something that is urgent that has to be done right now. And most things don't have to be done at least a certain way right in that moment. But remember, you say, what would this look like if it were easy right now? Knowing that later on, if it's something you need to add some additional copy, heft, whatever information to, depending on what you're doing, you can do it later if it's not something that has to happen in that moment. Also, asking that question, again, when you're in the middle of the whirlwind, things are feeling a little harried, asking that question can help ground you. It gets you centered. It's not necessarily a meditation, but even during a meditation, you could take a few minutes and think about what would this look like if it were easy? What would this look like if it were easy? And I believe when you create space for that, give yourself some time. I love some space. Create space for that and the answer will come if you open up to it. But if you're pushing forward, if you're plowing forward, trying to make it happen in just one way and not being flexible, you can't get grounded and centered and move in a different direction that might be better. Even sometimes, I'll tell you this, a lot of times when I ask myself that question, I come up with an even better idea than what I initially was plowing forward, trying to make happen. And the last thing I'll say with asking yourself that question, what would this look like if it were easy? It lets you do the best job rather than doing the most. Now, I'm a big fan of doing the most when it comes to being all that you are and all of those things. I talked about that in a very recent episode. In fact, it was episode 114, so be sure to go back and listen to that. Great episode about the benefits of doing the most. Now, as I said, doing the most applies to being all of who you are, at least in the context that I was speaking about it. But when you're asking yourself the question, what would this look like if it were easy? You're focusing on doing your best in that moment, even if that best means scaling back so you can really focus on what you want to accomplish and make it the best as opposed to just making it the most. So, of course, I don't speak for Tim Ferriss, but I'm thinking with the podcast, what can I do in this moment, a scaled down version so I can see what I want to create with this podcast. And then, of course, he added things to it as it continued to grow as far as production and all of those other things. Such a smart way to start, almost like they say the lean startup idea. But starting small, or even if you're not starting small, maybe you started big and you need to scale it back and think about, okay, what's the best way to do this in this moment that's easy, that would still come out being something that you're proud of. So take a few minutes today, check in if you're harried at work or business or with family or friends, anything. Actually, this can apply to anything outside of business, whatever you're doing, whatever the next project is, even when you're thinking about something in the future, maybe it's not in this moment, thinking about what you want to create in the future or a project you want to do. Start from the space of, even if you have a huge list, an outline, vision board, all that great stuff, start from what would this look like if it were easy? All right. So thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate you. And honestly, it would not be the same without you. There is no me without you, to be dramatic. But I really do appreciate you guys being here. And to check out other interviews that I've done with inspiring women entrepreneurs, you can always go to supportissexypodcast.com. Check it out. You can see all of the interviews, solo episodes, all the information. Be sure to check out the free resources button. It's at the top, and you'll see that I have an audio training on making brave decisions. Completely free audio training, a resource for you, making brave decisions. So check that out and let me know what you think. You can always reach me on social media at Elayne Fluker. I will be sure to respond. Thank you again for being here. Think about what would it look like if it were easy. And until next time, you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.